Hello everyone, and welcome to an biology webinar series presented to you by Translational Outcome Research Group, Department of Zoology, University of Calcutta. In this webinar series, we not only focus on biology, but also how biology is interconnected with various other disciplines. So to all our dear audience, you can post your questions and interact among yourselves in the comments. The feedback link will be shared at the end of the session, so please keep a note of that. And with that, I will introduce our very respected speaker, Sri Nandan Shastri. A very warm welcome to you, sir. Sri Nandan Shastri did his PG diploma in museology and MSc in geology. He has over 45 years of experience in the field of museology with focus on environmental sciences with specialization in art science. He published 167 articles at various national and international levels related to topics on museums, exhibition strategies, new museology display techniques of artifacts, etc. Written a book on museums of India. He served as the Vice President of Museums Association of India for 4 years and elected twice on Executive Board of ICOM India since 2015, associated with the ICOM US and American Alliance of Museums. Former curator, University Museum, Shabbat Patel University over 33 years. Have worked for 9 years in Lawrence School of Science, University of California, Berkeley, and uh, for 11 years at Asian Art Museum San Francisco. So we are very honored to have you, sir, in our platform, and our mentor and convener, Professor Ina Roy Banerjee, Department of Zoology, University of Calcutta, has sent her best regards to you. And with that, the stage is all yours.
Hi, good evening to everyone. And before I begin my talk, let me say a few words about ICOM. Uh, ICOM stands for International Council of Museums, with its headquarters in Paris. And in India also, we have National Committee. And you will be glad to know the headquarters of ICOM is in Kolkata. And I am a member of ICOM's United States Committee since I am a citizen of United States. And Akash Lina introduced me and said that I have worked in Lawrence School of Science. My tenure in Lawrence School of Science was from 2011 to 2020, and I was in a NOAA project. Uh, NOAA stands for National Oceanographic and Atmospheric Administration, and its project on science on the sphere is well known. And mm, here in India also, by National Council of Science Museums, which is under Ministry of Culture, Government of India, in 7 science and technological museums in India. Such science on spheres are very popular for the educational activities. So feel free to visit Science on a Sphere in Science City, Kolkata as well. So now may I request to go to my presentation. As it is mentioned, the title of my talk is For Biological Museums in University of California, Berkeley, an overview. And University of California is one of the very prestigious universities in United States, and it has a campus in 11 cities. So I was on the campus of Berkeley City, California. Now, please move to slide number 2. This is the building on the campus of Berkeley. It is called Valley Life Science Building. and I am standing in front of it. Next slide, please. So, four biological museums in UC Berkeley, which I am going to deal with in my talk today. SC Museum of Entomology, Berkeley Natural History Museum, Museum of Vertebrate Zoology, Museum of Paleontology. Next slide, please. The Asich Museum of Entomology is a research museum dedicated to terrestrial arthropods located at the University of California at Berkeley. It contains perhaps the world's largest collection of California insects and has been ranked among the top university based collections in North America. Next slide, please. The mission of the museum is utilization of the collection to facilitate and document research, teaching, and outreach in arthropod biology. We are committed to making the information contained in our collection as accessible as possible to researchers, students, and the non academic community, and actively pursue interactions which will foster this development within the Berkeley Natural History Museum Consortium, as well as nationally and globally. And the curator of this museum, uh, Peter, has worked extensively in Indonesia as well and collected many specimens from there, which are on display in the museum. Next slide, please. The mission of the museum is utilization of the collection to facilitate and document research, teaching, and outreach in arthropod biology. I think we are done with that slide. Next slide, please. Can we go to slide number 6?
Sir, I think Shirley is having some problem with the slides. She's coming back soon.
All right. No worries. So next slide, please. Yeah, here, uh, here is Peter, about whom I mentioned. Uh, Next slide, please. As I mentioned, he has collected many specimens from Indonesia uh, in an island called Sulawesi. Next slide, please. Uh, there are so many slides in the collection, and the storage is made with collapsible gate. Next slide, please. So there are so many drawers, as you can see, and mm, they are housing the vast collection. Next slide, please. So here you see the storage area, what we call reserve collection. Uh, uh, Next slide. So these are various specimens on display. Next slide, please. Uh, Can we go up to slide number 27? I don't think any description is required, but go slowly, little bit slowly. Yeah. And when you reach slide number 28, please stop. Slide number 28. Uh, Berkeley Natural History Museums. The origin of Berkeley Natural History Museums date to period between 1880 and 1920. a time when natural history and the study of humanity were intimately linked. Natural scientists such as William Henry Holmes and John Wesley Powell, members of both the early US Geological Survey and the Bureau of American Ethnology, embodied this collection between natural history and the study of humankind. It was also a time of tremendous change in American society and in science, and coincided with the founding of the Western states and the University of California. Next slide, please. Now, an international team of researchers has discovered what they think is the source of variety of MRSA, and it didn't come about through incremental evolution in people being treated with the antibiotic methicillin. It came from hedgehogs. Next slide. Here you see display in Natural History Museum. This type of display technically is called diorama, where the foreground done by the artist is in such a way that although it is two-dimensional to the visitor, it gives illusion as if it is three-dimensional. Next slide, please. Uh, this is I don't know the exact pronunciation, but this specimen is collected in USA. Next slide. Museum of Vertebrate Zoology. The Museum of Vertebrate Zoology is a natural history museum at the University of California, Berkeley. The museum was founded by philanthropist Annie Montag Alexander in 1908. Alexander recommended a zoologist Joseph Grinnell as museum director, a position he held until his death in 1939. Next slide, please. It has one of the nation's largest research collections of mammals, birds, amphibians, and reptiles, and the largest collection of any university museum. The museum is located at the UC Berkeley campus in the Valley Life Science Building on the third floor, and it is a research based museum. Next slide, please. Uh, there are strong research links between the museum and the 2000 acre of MBZ and UC Field Reserve at Hastings Natural History Reservation. Further, the MBS is actively engaged in developing concepts and tools for biodiversity informatics through collaborations across the Berkeley Natural History Museums and International Conservatory. Next slide, please. The MVZ mammal collection is one of the largest in the United States, especially associated with an academic institution. It contains over uh, 2 million 30 uh, 8,000 skin, skull, skeleton, and field preserved specimens. Over 35,000 are represented also by frozen or fluid preserved tissues in the MVZ tissue collection. The collection includes 364 type specimens, making it the fourth largest collection of such specimens in the United States. Next slide, please. Next, the University of California Museum of Paleontology is a paleontology museum located on the campus of University of California, Berkeley. The museum is within the Valley of Life Science building designated by George K. Calhoun and completed in 1930. Next slide, please. Here you see the specimen of T-Rex, and T-Rex has two two options. The, the T-Rex tour in first option. Uh, the tour includes an introduction to the museum, a slideshow on the making of T-Rex, and a discussion on the dinosaurs, pterosaurs, and other fossils on display in the atrium. And the deluxe tour comprises of T-Rex and slideshow, plus a closer look at fossils and the fossilization process in one of the scientific labs. Before we move further, let me tell you something about Museum of Vertebrate Zoology. The Museum of Vertebrate Zoology, popularly known by its abbreviation MVZ, founded in 1908, is a center for research and education in biology of amphibians, reptiles, fishes, and birds. And MP, MBZ was founded upon a philosophy that organisms should be studied in relationship to their natural environments. Its collections are supplemented by extensive ancillary information, field notes, photographs, tape recorded vocalizations that are connected to specimens and or tissues and enhances their value to researchers. This concept was pioneered at the MVZ and continues to be the primary focus of research efforts. To this end, there are research links between the museum and the UC field station at Hastings Natural History Reservation. The MVZ is also engaged in developing concepts and tools for biodiversity informatics through the collaboration across the Berkeley Natural History Museum and International Consortia. Uh, now, can we go to slide number 36? 36. Yeah. Uh, I have already mentioned about these two options. And I would like to say that the Museum of Paleontology supports many courses and programs with all of its resources, collections, laboratories, staff, research programs, public lectures, and employment opportunities for students. Interested students should consult the following websites for departmental information on courses and undergraduate admissions: integrative biology, earth and planetary science, and geography. And uh, before we move further, I would like to tell to the students that if you plan any doctoral program at our UC Berkeley campus, feel free to contact me. The organizer of the webinar can give you my email ID and I can give you some tips how to obtain scholarship and travel grant over there. Uh, Next slide, please. This is Cougar skull. Next slide, please. Here you see children standing and they are witnessing the T-Rex. Next slide. Thank you very much. And before we go to Q&A, I would like to uh, give some more introduction uh, about digital revolution, which is related with my topic. So you can close the presentation mode and we can go to speakers mode. Museum specimens form the basis of research on evolution, speciation, and distribution, and also provide an important baseline for studies of conservation and emerging diseases. And for example, hantavirus, West Nile virus, Chytrichimocosus, to name a few. Specimens and their associated data, for example, field notes of habitat, recording of song, reproductive and age information, etc., and also provide information on natural and life history traits of animals. Examples of past and present uses of the envisaged collection include tracking historical changes in animal populations and communities, linking the effects of pesticides, DDT and DDE, to eggshell thinning in birds, which cause reproductive failure and population declines in brown pelicans, peregrine falcons, and other species. This led to banning these pesticides in the United States, illustrating species and their distribution for field guides and other natural history books. Using tissue samples collected from rodents, using historical museum skin to track the impact of avian malaria on Hawaiian birds, tracking the global disease dynamics of Tyromycosis in amphibians. Now, let me briefly mention about paleontology's first digital revolution. Stemmed by this limitation, the paleobiology community has undertaken several initiatives to digitally uh, aggregate data from the primary literature to enable rapid, large-scale synthetic analysis of the fossil record. Uh, among many specimens, uh, geographically and taxonomically, most comprehensive is the literature-based paleobiology database called PBDB, and you may go to its website by uh, typing on Google paleobiodb.org. Although it was initially compiled to answer questions that only required the data to be taxonomically and temporally representative rather than comprehensive, present for most taxa. The PBDB is still not so very much comprehensive. Nonetheless, the database currently includes 410 contributors and information on 1,094,000 collection sites, uh, 3,007 3,071 lakh taxa and 1,037 million fossil occurrences. It has enabled 317 publications and has motivated an annual international graduate student summer workshop in paleontological data analysis. Uh, the second digital revolution, the published literature, although rich, documents only a fraction of the fossil housed in this World Museum. To date, it has been almost impossible to estimate the quantity of this additional dark data. But now a second digital revolution is underway in paleontology. The digital aggregation of this unpublished, largely inaccessible fossil collections and their metadata. Within the USA, the work is being led by National Science Foundation, this division of biological infrastructure. Its abbreviation is DBI program for Advancing Digitalization Biodiversity Collection, and its abbreviation is ADBC. Mobilization of these museum records will be enormous scientific value, enabling, for example, more precise estimates of geographic and stratigraphic ranges, improved knowledge of distribution and partitioning of taxa and faunal associations across environmental gradients, enhanced ability to characterize morphological clines and identity, ecophenotypes effect, and more contributions to identify specimens suitable for morphological and stable isotopic analysis. A quantification of amount of dark data in fossil collection is also important. And the last one uh, is significance of paleontology's second digital revolution. In this age of rapid global change, paleontological knowledge of past evolution and ecological changes and their causes and consequences is especially relevant to understanding the life and future of the earth. So, thank you very much. Akashlina, can we go for Q&A if there are any questions?
Thank you so much, sir, for your
Yeah,
wonderful lecture.
you're welcome. Um, and I hope
Yes, sir.
audience has liked my uh,
Yes,
talk.
sir. Yes, sir.
And
Certainly.
if there are any questions, I will be glad to reply.
Yes, sir. So the first question is from Shoheli বিশ্বাস, and she wants to know what suggestions would you give to preserve many important antique specimens in museum nowadays?
Uh, the most recent method, which is also employed in New Delhi in the Natural uh, National Museum of Natural History, uh, is dry preservation, uh, freeze dry preservation. And the traditional technique is to keep the specimens in formaldehyde or what is called formalin. And in our university museum at Sardar Patel University in Gujarat State, we have more than 125 uh, human anatomical specimens, and for visually impaired uh, persons we have also audio commentary, and we allow them to touch some of the original specimens, for example like brain, heart, liver, even 3 months old fetus, 5 months old fetus, and the blind persons are very much thrilled because they hardly get such a opportunity in their lifetime. And our university also gives them a free lunch. And one important point which I would like to highlight, that the university uh, makes contracts with uh, some uh, uh, cooks, and when these cooks hear the prayer of these blind students before they start lunch, uh, it is so impressive that even lower paid cooks also willingly part their one day salary and donate to our museum to carry on such activities for such disabled people in our society.
So that was really interesting to know. Sir, we
Mhm.
don't have something like this in our India.
Mhm. Yeah, we call this program as Touch, Feel and Learn program, which I have extensively done as a curator when I was working in Gujarat state in Sardar Patel University. Over 27 years, I have conducted this program called Touch, Feel and Learn program for visually impaired persons. And there are some rare specimens also, like that of conjoined twins or a mammillary gland infected by cancer. Uh, Any more
Okay, sir.
question?
Yes, sir. The
Hmm.
next question is from Vijay Vishwash. Most of
Hmm.
the Indian museums are lacking funds as it seems people are getting less interested about museums nowadays. How can we fix this situation?
Uh, Instead of totally depending upon the government's grant, of course, those of you who are from university side, let me tell you that University Grants Commission New Delhi has one scheme which is called Augmented of University Museum, and my specific museum in Gujarat, in Sadarpet University, got the post of assistant curator under this scheme, and that person worked for over 27 years in our university museum. Besides that, the grant is given for lab equipments in the museum, because museum must have its own laboratory, and moreover, for photo documentary also the government gives a grant. Even CSI also gives a grant, and the Ministry of Culture too. Uh, but in United States, although that country's history is barely 400 years old, the community at large is so much aware about the uh, cultural legacy that the community funds the museums. So in USA, most of the museums don't depend upon government grants, but it is the community who supports financially also. Moreover, those who are retired professors, for example, they do volunteer work in the museum uh, without accepting any remuneration. So in India also, in some museums, there is an association called Friends of Museum. So if you are not having adequate staff, the other option is to seek help of the volunteers. All right.
Thank you so much, sir.
Hmm.
We have another question from Shubhodip Mondol.
Hmm.
Sir, nowadays many museums a, are not a good condition, in a good condition, and many rare specimens can't be preserved well. So, in that situation, what can we do?
There are always pros and cons of any issue. Let me tell you one negative aspect. Uh, you know, for Ministry of Environment and Forest Government of India, that a few years ago, uh, by huge fire, almost 90% collection of National Museum of Natural History, which is located at Barakhamba Road, New Delhi, uh, was destroyed. And there was a lot of criticism, both from government side and public side. Uh, but uh, finally, what Ministry of Environment did, that director and sub staff members were transferred to some other museums. But no serious measures are sometimes taken. So far as even fire is concerned, uh, even to class 4 servants, it is required to give them training periodically. If, for example, if there is a fire in the museum, how to use a fire extinguisher. And some museums in our country, like Salarjung Museum in Hyderabad, have hydrant systems as well. Moreover, as per international norms, the guidelines of International Council of Museum is that 70% collection must be in a reserve collection hall, and only 30% collection should be on display. There are several reasons. One important reason is that if theft takes place and if everything is on display, uh, we may lose all rare objects and specimens. Uh, Another factor is that by fieldwork also when we acquire new specimens of objects, first of all we have to conserve them in the laboratory. For example, there are corroded metal objects. We have to treat them by certain chemicals. And for documenting them also, we uh, require expertise. And we must have uh, photo documentation data. And as per the guidelines of Archaeological Survey of India, uh, museums are expected to uh, give, submit one copy of photo documentation of each specimen to ASI in New Delhi. Moreover, so far as ivory collection is concerned in any museum, in the state government, there is a department of forest. So every year the museum has come mandatory to send the report that the ivory objects are which are in the collection of the museum, they are safe and there is no decay. Uh, uh, so uh, such measures are also necessary. Moreover, so far as humidity is concerned, uh, especially for organic objects, including organic biological objects, the humidity inside the showcases must not exceed 60%. Whereas in monsoon season in India, even in Calcutta, it goes beyond 95, sometimes to 98, 99 percent. So another option for important specimens, for example, the original constitution of India is preserved in hermetically sealed showcases. So there is complete vacuum inside the showcase. So there is no question of humidity. Moreover, whenever there are fluorescent lights, the ultraviolet rays fade up the colors. For example, of uh, skin of animal uh, or uh, 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 paintings on paper, etc. So, UV absorbing filters are fixed for each tube light. Moreover, there should not be much heat uh, inside the showcase. So sometimes the remedy is the fixture of the tube light is kept on the rear side of the showcase, and only the rod of tube light is kept inside the light box at the top of showcase. So besides light, humidity, temperature, another factor is air pollution. So for that also in many laboratories, including the conservation lab in Indian Museum of Calcutta, there are some equipments to find remedies. In some museums in India also, uh, uh, in the past, there were problems of flood also. If the museum is located nearby a river, for example, in South Gujarat, there is a museum, art museum run by Surat Municipal Corporation, and um, almost 25% collection in the reserve collection was flooded. Uh, so there is in Lucknow National Research Laboratory for Conservation of Cultural Property. So the conservators of NRLC uh, gave chemical treatment to such objects affected by flood. So there are various ways and means to solve the problem. I hope that answers the query of Shubhadeep Mandal. Mhm.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much for explaining all the details, especially like the lights and everything you told. Our
Yeah,
own museum of our department, which was
yeah,
like it caught fire, and as you mentioned that everyone from all the each and every staff should actually have some knowledge to how to deal with it, and we lost a majority of our specimen in that unfortunate event. And that museum was like solely brought out by our mentor and convener, Professor N.R. Roy Banerjee, and it contains nearly like specimens as old as 100 years old. It's a centenary museum, so it was a very unfortunate event. We lost a lot of our specimens on that.
and I would like to add one point that uh, especially for departmental museums. Uh, if the head of the department or director of the institute is aware, he sh- should instruct his colleagues to do periodically fire drill, uh, just
Yes,
to train the staff as if there was a real fire. What steps we should take, because you can't use the elevators, lift during such casualty. So all staff member must know how to use the staircase and go outside. So such drills are also periodically necessary.
yes, sir. Certainly. Thank you so much, sir. So we have our last question. I think you have explained the first part, so I'll go to the last part.
Mhm.
Like, can we increase the diversity of museum? To like, he's asking that people are losing interest in museum. So if we increase the diversity of the museum about collections and everything, will that help with the interest of people?
Of course, uh, for example, even in India, there are some offbeat museums. Uh, I mean, they are on the subjects about which any citizen uh, may hardly have vision. For example, in New Delhi, there is a National Museum of Toilet. So, in that museum, uh, the entire history of a toilet is depicted and pros and cons. Another example of offbeat museum, which I would like to mention, that in United States we have a museum on menstruation, and many female visitors find it so useful uh, to resolve their own problems, and they have a virtual site also. So the curator of museum also answers questions to those visitors who face such problems. So in India also, more health museums are also needed. For example, in Aligarh Muslim University, there is a department of museology. And moreover, there are many other departmental museums on the university campus. One museum is on preventive and community medicine. And the staff of the museum was engaged by the university as per state government's instruction for vaccination program. So, especially in the community in the rural areas in UP, uh, there are so many rumors regarding vaccination. So, even the staff of museum can give awareness. Another example which I may cite is when birth of a baby girl takes place frequently, especially in rural community. The mother is blamed for it. But biologically speaking, uh, it, it is the chromosome of the sperm which decides the sex of the baby. So in rural areas, some museums in India too, propagate such scientific awareness, and uh, that is absolutely necessary. So there are various means. For example, at present, I am engaged by government of Gujarat as museum consultant for a project, National Museum of Tribal Freedom Fighters, which is 9 kilometers away at a place called Garudeshwar from Statue of Unity. And e- even in Northeast region, one such museum has already been inaugurated by our Honorable Prime Minister. Another such museum has been inaugurated in Jharkhand as well. So government is going to set up 6 museums on these subjects. So diversity of subjects is absolutely essential so far as Indian museum, current modern Indian museum movement is concerned. And you will be glad to know that Asiatic Society in Kolkata, uh, the credit goes to the society because it houses the oldest museum i- in the entire country. And so far as Gujarat is concerned, uh, the oldest museum in the state is Kutch Museum, which is a semi-desert area of Kutch, and it was established in the year 1877. So there, sh- uh, there should be diversity uh, among museums. Okay,
Thank you so much, sir, for explaining all the queries of our audience. And thank you so much for being in our platform. We are extremely honored to have you here,
thank you.
and we are enlightened by your talk. Thank you so much, sir. And our
You are
audience have
welcome.
enjoyed. As you can see,
Thank
their
you.
question, they have lots of questions.
And some of persons interested but who have missed this live event, I hope
Yes,
they can, as per their convenience, watch on YouTube, isn't it?
exactly, sir. It will
Mhm.
be archived in our YouTube channel, so anybody
Mhm.
from anywhere can watch this anytime they
Right.
want. That's
All
it
right.
through the link. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much.
Namaskar. Bye. Mhm.
Namaskar, sir. Bye. Bye, sir.
Mhm.
And to all our dear audience, as you are already aware, you can visit our website and check out all our previously archived videos. And thank you for staying with us. Be safe and bye.